Erev Shabbat Shalom. Gentlemen, it's Lo Shishi, let's get serious. Anyway, so the purpose of tonight's class is not, it is to say Hidushim, but it's also to remind us of things that we already know, but that we seem to forget from time to time. There is a process, there is a situation in this week's parasha, which is Tavo, by the way, that it's called bikurim. Okay, what bikurim basically is that after a person he has produce, he's a farmer, and he produces fruit. The first fruit that he produces, or the first basket of fruits that he produces, he's hayav from the Torah to take this basket of fruit and bring it to the Beit HaMikdash. It's a donation of his directly to the Beit HaMikdash. And the process goes that after he gives it to the Kohen takes it and he waves it. It's a ceremony that he goes through, that the Kohen takes it and he waves it. Pasuk in the parasha says in source number 1, Tavo and when you come to the land that Hashem gives you, He's going to give you a nahala, and said, you're going to take the first fruits that you took from your land that Hashem gave you, and you're going to put it in the basket. You're going to take it to the Beit HaMikdash, you're going to come to the Kohen, and that's going to be in that time. You're going to tell him, I came now to give this gift basket to the Beit HaMikdash. And he takes the basket from his hands. So we need some background. What is going on in this pisukim? What is the depth? So Rashi comes along and he says, Adam yorid letoch sadehu. A person comes to his field, he sees a date that just spudded. He takes a reed and he ties it around it, l'siman, as a sign, and he says, Harei ze bikurim. And he calls it, this is bikurim, this is going to be the first fruits. And that the Kohen takes the basket from his hands, and this is the key line, lahanif oto, in order to wave it. The Kohen takes the basket, and then the ceremony that's performed is that him and the Kohen together, they take this basket and they begin to wave it. V'heinif oto. This seems like this is the main part of the ceremony, is to wave this basket. Kohen maniach yado tachat yad ha'ba'alim. The Kohen puts his hands under the hands of the ba'alim, of the person who owns the basket. V'heinif umenif, and they shake it and they begin to wave it. The sources from the Sifri, and the pasuk says that it calls this specific mitzvah, I underlined it in bold, Trumat Yedechem. It's called Trumat Yedechem. Now, if you know what the word Truma means, it means a raising. That this ceremony is based on the raising of the hands. And then she comes along and he finishes, so I only have two main questions in this whole ceremony. Question number 1 is, why is bikurim called Trumat Yedechem? It's called the raising of the hands. And second of all, what is the significance? What is this whole process that we go through, that the Kohen has to take it and he has to do the waving? What is the significance of waving? What is the depth? What is the secret that Hashem is trying? I always thought, listen, it's a ceremony in the Beit HaMikdash. You don't ask on ceremony. Whatever the Kohen does, whatever you do over there, you keep quiet. This is what has to be done. That means this is what has to be done. But the truth is, it's not that way. Everything in the Torah has an explanation. So what is Pishat with the Kohen taking this basket and waving it along with you? And why is it called Trumat Yedechem, the raising of the hands? So I thought that we could produce a derech, we could produce a way of answering this question from the very last Rashi that I brought in source number 2. Rashi says that pasuk says Va'armata elav, that you're going to tell the Kohen. What are you going to tell the Kohen? So Rashi says in the very last line, in source number 2, he says, She'enecha kafui tova, that I am not an ingrate. That when we bring bikurim to the Beit HaMikdash, we're trying to tell Hashem that we recognize that the reason why I have fruit, the reason why I have parnasah in my home, the reason why I was able to produce something like this is because of you. And therefore, as a note to my appreciation to Hashem that He gave me this produce, we come along and we take the very first, you know what it's like? The mashal, sometimes when you have a store, you have a retail store, and the first day that they open, a lot of times, the first customer that they have, the customer gives them cash. That cash, they don't put in the register right away. Sometimes you see it on the store that they have the cash and they duct tape it to the register. $20 bill that's duct tape. Why do they do that? As a sign. This is as appreciation. The first dollar bill that we got, we're not putting inside the register. We're not keeping it for ourselves. Rather, we're giving over to the cash register. L'mashal, l'havdil. Of course, we're not giving over to the cash register. We're giving to Hashem. But it's the same idea that we want to take the first fruits that we produced and we give it to Hashem as a note of appreciation that Hashem was able to give us these first fruits. And the truth is that this Pshat and Rashi, it coincides with the Chinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch, he gives the Tamo of the mitzvot, he gives the explanation behind the mitzvot. In the explanation of mitzvah 606, which is the mitzvah Bikurim, he comes along and he says, this is source number 3, he says, Umisharasheh mitzvah. The root of the mitzvah is, Lefi shehadam me'orer machshavotav u'mitzayer belibo ha'emet bekoch divrei piv, that he's coming to whatever is in his heart, the appreciation that he has for Hashem in his heart, he's coming along and he's saying it with his mouth. That Hashem, I appreciate the fact that you gave me the ability that my field should produce fruits. Al kain be'etiv elav Hashem baruchu ubaruchu oto ve'et admato la'asot perot. The fact that God blessed him in order for his field to have fruits. V'zachal lahaviyam lebeit Elokeinu. He was zocheh. He had the merit to bring these fruits to Beit Hashem, to the Beit Hamikdash. Ra'ui lo le'orel levavenu b'divrei pihim ulachshov. He has a mitzvah in order to awaken the appreciation in his heart and his mind. And he says, Ki hakol higia elav me'et hadon ha'olam. This is the key line, that everything that he has, every parnasah that he has, every car that he has, every phone that he has, every watch that he has, everything comes me'adon ha'olam. Everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the fact that we're coming to the Beit HaMikdash and we're giving these first fruits, this is what we're trying to tell the Kohen. We're trying to tell Hashem that even though, yes, it is the first time that I'm producing, still I'm giving it to you, Hashem, in order to tell you that everything I believe is coming from you. Mitoch ha'het orerut. Because this guy's coming to say this, nafsho b'sheva Hashem u'betovato zoche u'mitbarechet arzo. Because we're coming and we're giving gratitude to Hashem, Hashem, based on that gratitude, He blesses us even more. Imagine the mashal, you have a child, you have 2 children. One child, or let's say you give both the kids an ice cream, and one child says, Abba, thank you for the ice cream, and the other one says nothing. He just takes it and he runs away. And this happens over and over again. The person that's giving you gratitude, the person that's saying thank you, you're more inclined to give him the ice cream because he's telling you thank you. Hashem lehavdil is the same thing. The fact that we're coming along, we're saying Hashem, thank you for these first fruits, says in Sefer HaChinuch, he's more inclined umitbarechet arzo. Because of that, Hashem gives you the baracha. V'alkein tzivinu baruchu al zeh. That's why Hashem gave us a commandment of bikurim, ki chafetz chesed hu. Because Hashem, He wants to give us chesed, He wants to give us kindness, but He has to know that we appreciate the kindness that He's giving towards us. Therefore, by this mitzvah of bikurim, it's a way of telling Hashem, thank you. It's a lesson in gratitude. Bikurim is a lesson in gratitude that we're thanking Hashem for the produce that He has given us. And chas v'shalom, if a person does not have this gratitude, if a person does not know how to say thank you to Hashem, the Torah has very stern warning. The Torah gives big musar on those people who have money and don't thank Hashem at the same time. If people think that whatever they have in their life is based on only their own prowess, only their own genius, we'll call it that, Hashem says, Bani Minan, if you look at the very next source number 4, says, Devarim Chet Yud Aleph, it says, Hisham Elecha, be very careful, Pen Tishkach et Hashem Elokecha. You might forget Hashem, Pen Tochal, you might eat v'savata, you're going to be satiated, batim tovim tevneh ve'yashavta, you're going to build beautiful houses, ubekerecha v'tzonecha yirbeun, you're going to have a lot of tzon, a lot of sheep, a lot of cattle, v'kesed v'zahav yirbeh, you're going to have a lot of money, v'chol asher lecha yirbeh, everything you're going to own is going to be a lot. However, v'ram levavecha, you're going to become hori, v'shachachta et Hashem Elokecha, you're going to forget that He took you out of Egypt, v'amrata b'levet, you're going to say in your heart, kochi ve'otzem yadi asa li et ha'hayil hazeh, you're going to come along, you're going to say, this is my doing, this is my hands, this is my koach. Hashem didn't give me this. Hashem was in Shamayim. After all, it was my business idea. I went to work every single day. I took the train. I worked hard. I studied in the office. I did all these things. This money that I have is not because of Hashem. It's because of me. A person could think that. However, says the Torah, no. It's really Hashem that gives you the koach la'asod chayil. And therefore, Shlomo Melech says it in Kohelet. He says, Osher shomer leba'alav l'ra'ato. That it could be that God sometimes gives a person success and He gives him money, but money has a way to corrupt a person's mind. Money has a way to make a person think that it wasn't really Hashem's doing, it was really He that does it. And the truth is, I saw a remez in one of the Sfarim. The remez was that if a person takes the gematria of the word yad, we can do it together. Yad is yud, that's 10, and dal, that's 14. So a person has 1 yad, a person has 2 yad, two hands. So 14 and 14 is 28. 28 is koach. So therefore, a person could think this yad plus this yad that I did the koach. It's really my koach that brought forth this parnasah. The truth is, the person cannot fall into that trap of kochi ve'otzem yadi. Rather, he should think Yehu hanoten lecha koach la'asot chayil. And based on this, we can understand this is the significance behind the mitzvah of bikurim, because we have to paint ourselves a picture. Imagine 40 years in the midbar, 40 years in the desert, and the Jewish people had everything that was taken care of. They did not need to eat because they had the man. They did not need to work for anything because there was no reason to buy drinks because they had the ber minyan. There was reason to buy clothes because the anei hakavod came and they pressed the clothes for the Jewish people as they slept, and it either grew with them or it shrunk if they got older. Everything in the Jewish people in the midbar, in the desert, was taken care of. Therefore, it was impossible to fall in the trap of kochi ve'otzem yadi. How could a person could come along in the midbar and say, yeah, it was me who brought them on? That's impossible. No one would even think that, because it was clearly the work of God. It was a miracle, the man. It was a miracle, the ber minyan. It was a miracle, the anei hakavod. Nobody could come along and say in the midbar, kochi ve'otzem yadi. It would be foolish to say such a thing. However, once they came into Eretz Yisrael, ki tavo el haaretz, when they came to the land, and now there's no more man. There's no more ber minyan, there's no man in hakavod, there's nothing. They had to actually work for the first time for their parnasah. All of a sudden, a person says, you know what, now I have to work. So what does he do? He plows, and he harvests, and he plants the seeds, and he wakes up early in the morning, and he feeds the chickens, and he feeds the roosters, and all these things he's doing. All of a sudden, after 6 months of planting, something he never did before, all of a sudden he gets budding in his tree. Now he sees the apples, now he sees the oranges, now he sees everything. Now he could say, listen, in the midbar, yeah, maybe it was but now in Eretz Yisrael, when I'm doing the work, maybe a person could fall into the trap of kochi ve'otzem yadi, because he's doing the work at the end of the day. That's why Hashem says, bring bikurim fast, do it fast as you can, so you don't fall into the trap of making you think that this was you. At the end of the day, just like the midbar was done ayidei nisim, by miracles, so too when you came into the land of Eretz Yisrael, everything was done to you also when it came to miracles. And that's the whole secret of bikurim. Bikurim is there to tell us that yes, it's a lesson in gratitude, but it's also a lesson to think, don't think in fact, that this is your doing, this is your koach, rather this is the koach of Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I think the first person in history to realize that all this was done as not really your koach, but the koach of Hashem, was Abraham Avinu. If I could review the story just for 2 seconds, the story was that after Abraham, he found out that Lot, his nephew, was captured. He took himself and his 318 soldiers and he went to fight the 4 kings and the 5 kings. And finally, after Abraham wins the war, the Melech of Sodom comes to Abraham and he says, because you won the war, I want to give you the spoils. The spoils belong to you. And says Abraham, I'm not going to take the spoils, I'm not going to take anything, because a person should not say that Abraham became rich because of you. If you can read the Pesukim inside, it says, the source number 5, says Bereshit, Yud Aleph Chav Aleph, Yud Dal Chav Aleph, says the Pasuk, Vayomer Melech Sodom el Abraham, Tein li hanefesh v'harechush kachlach, take the rechush, take all the money. Vayomer Abraham el Melech Sodom, harimoti yadi el elyon, kone shamayim va'aretz, I'm going to raise my hands towards Hashem. Imichut v'atzroch na'al, I'm not going to take a chut, not only a string, but not only a leather strap. Imekach mikol hashelach, I'm not going to take any of you, anything that you offer me. Below tomar, a person should not say, Ani hisharati et Abraham, that I made Abraham Avinu rich. Says the Rashi, what is this wording of harimoti yadi, that I lift my hands? Says the Rashi, harimoti yadi lashon shivuah, I'm going to swear, marim ani et yadi le'el elyon, I'm going to raise my hands to Hashem in a swearing type of form. I swear to God that I'm not going to take a dime from you, not a dollar from you. So the rabbis want to know, puzzling, why does Abraham have to use this traumatic language of harimoti et yadi, that I'm going to raise my hand? Just say, I swear I'm not going to take a dollar. Why are you saying harimoti elyon? I'm going to raise my hands, I swear to God. Relax, just say, I swear, that's it. What's this whole shibwa of I'm going to raise my hands? The answer is because what was the ikar evilness of the people of Sodom? If you look in the Torah, the pasuk says by Sodom, Ra'im v'chataim laHashem me'od. That Sodom was Ra'im v'chataim laHashem me'od. That they were very hataim. The rabbis want to comment that how were they Ra'im? How were they bad? How were they evil? In the me'od. What's the me'od? If you look in the first pasuk in Kriyat Shema, ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha. The rabbis want to know, levavecha is your heart, nafshecha is your soul, bechol me'odecha, says the Gemara, bechol mamunecha. That when the Torah refers to the words me'odecha, it's in reference to money. Therefore, the ra'im v'chataim, how were the people of Sodom ra'im v'chataim? The ra'im v'chataim in the inyan of me'od, of money. They always tried to poison people's machshava, their hashkafa, their ideology was saying that money doesn't come from Hashem, money comes from you. At the end of the day, you did the work, you took the train, you stayed up late at night to work, the money belongs to you. Me'od, it's the me'od. They try to get the people in the me'od. Therefore comes the Melech Sodom and he tells Abraham, I'm willing to give you the money and here it is. And don't think, by the way, this money was given to you from Hashem, because look at the proof. You fought the war, 318 soldiers, you did it, and all this money is a proof to what? That it's really your doing, not Hashem. It's really kochi be'otzem yadi. So says Melech Sodom, the reason why he wanted to offer Abraham Avinu the money of the rechush, of the spoils, of the booty, in order to tell Abraham that don't believe that this comes from Hashem just for a minute. Really, it's really your doing, it's really your call, it's really your everything. Says Abraham Avinu, I'm not going to fall into your trap. Harimoti et yadi. I'm going to raise my hands towards you, Hashem, and say, Hashem, even though he's telling me that it's not coming from you, I raise my hands. I raise my hands in order to be a meramez. I'm giving a hint that whatever he's going to offer me, really at the end of the day, it comes from you. I raise my hands to you. I'm raising my hands to you, Hashem, in gratitude to say that everything at the end of the day comes from you. And I believe, by the way, that his great grandson, Abraham Avinu, called Rubinoff HaKadosh, Rabbi, from the Gemara, that he also used the same, we'll call it hand gesture to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything comes from you. If you look at the Gemara Ketubot, says the Gemara in source number 6, Ubishaat pitirato shel Rabbi, at the time that Rabbi was passing away, Zakaf Eser etzbe'otav kalpei mala. He put all 10 fingers up in the air and he said, "V'amru Rabbeinu shel olam, or Rabbeinu shel olam, galui ve'yadua lefanecha sheyagati be'eser etzbe'otai v'lo neheneti afilu be'etzba ketana." Hashem, you know that I worked very, very hard for my money, but at the same time, I didn't have hana'ah. I had no pleasure from the money that you gave me, even etzba ketana. And the Gemara says that Rabbi was very, very wealthy. In fact, a lot of times there are foods on the market that are seasonal food markets. And sometimes a person can't always afford to bring the expensive stuff. Just look in the supermarket today. If you have an item that comes from Eretz Israel, in Israel, a bag of Doritos is, 50 agrot, we'll call it, maybe 3 or 4 shekel for a bag of Doritos. In America, that same exact bag of Doritos is $3. What's Peshat? Because it's not seasonal over here. They don't make it here. They have to ship it from Eretz Israel. A bottle of Nivayot, of sweet water in Israel, is probably 10 shekel for 2 bottles. Over here, it's $4.29. Why? Because these are unseasonal, these are uncommon items to be on the market. However, says the Gemara that Rabbi, no matter what the season was, Rabbi always had unseasonal food markets at his table. Always. Because he was so wealthy, he was able to bring all the foods from all around the world in order to show his wealth. The Gemara also says that from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu until Rabbi, we did not find Gidulah and Torah in one place more than Moshe and Rabbi. Means that just like Moshe Rabbeinu was great in Torah, and just like Moshe Rabbeinu was rich, because the Midrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to keep the chiselings of the Luchot. The Luchot were made out of sapphire. And Moshe Rabbeinu, after he chiseled out the Aseret Dibrot on the Luchot, those chiselings, that we'll call it, that leftover sapphire stone, Hashem said, you can keep it. And Moshe Rabbeinu was very wealthy from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, just like Moshe Rabbeinu was wealthy, just like Moshe Rabbeinu had greatness in Torah, so to Rabbi. Rabbi was also very wealthy, and he also had greatness in Torah. Therefore, what the Gemara is trying to tell us is that Rabbi could fall into the trap of kochi ve'otzem yadi. He could have fell into the trap that everything belonged to him. But at the end of the day, he would raise his hands. What is the lashon? He said, "V'zakaf eser etzbe'otav." He raised it in order to say that nothing is attributed to myself. Rather, everything is belonging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Is that clear for now? Correct? Following, now I want to take the concept just one step further. There's a mitzvah that we know called netilat yadayim. The mitzvah basically is that every time before we eat bread, we have to take a cup and we have to wash our hands. What is the reason why we have to wash netilat yadayim before we eat bread? Anybody? Smichal Haver? Morty? You should know this. Huh? What's the reason? So the Gemara gives 2 answers. The Gemara in Hulin says, in source number 7, Nitilat yadayim necholin mipnei srach tum'ah. Because of what's called srach tum'ah, and in the second reason, according to Gemara Barachot, this is viktashtem elu ma'im rishonim, in order to purify ourselves. I'll tell it to you outside, and then we'll read it inside. This comes from the rabbi called the Smag. The Smag says that back in the day, the Kohanim, they would eat terumah. Terumah is consecrated food. In order, before a Kohen would eat consecrated food, he had to wash his hands. Because the Gemara says the yadayim askaniyotem. Hands, they go everywhere. They touch things that they touch maybe tumah. Therefore, we're afraid that the Kohen, if he touched a impure item and then he would eat chulin, this would in turn make the terumah item impure. Therefore, the rabbis made a takana. Before the Kohen would eat terumah, he would have to wash his hands in order to purify his hands. However, the rabbis were afraid that the Kohen, he's coming along and he's washing his hands because of terumah. Then the Kohen is going to look over at his Israelite, at his Israel brother who's not a Kohen, he's going to notice that the Israel is not washing before he eats bread. He's going to say, hey, how come I have to wash and he doesn't have to wash? Therefore, the rabbis came along and they said that, you know what, Srach Tumah, because the Kohen is washing, also the Israel also has to wash. And even though the rabbis come along and say, even though that nowadays terumah, we don't eat terumah, there's no terumah anymore, Kohanim don't eat terumah, still, it's a takana that always stayed in place, that we still have to wash for bread every single time before we eat bread, because of what? What's called srach tumah. Okay, the second reason is because we want cleanliness, we want holiness, but at the end of the day, the real reason is because of srach tumah. The answer is, Rabotai, we don't have terumah today, and we have no Kohanim, and even if we do have Kohanim, we're not eating terumah. Therefore, what is the reason? If the whole svara, the logic is not there, why are we still washing for bread? The logic is not there. There's no more kohanim, there's no more terumah, there's no more nothing. Therefore, why are we washing for terumah if the reason doesn't apply, but the logic doesn't apply anymore? I want to argue tonight that maybe, even though the actual logic itself behind the original logic doesn't apply, but I think still it gives us very strong musar. We have to imagine for ourselves a minute that a person, after working a very hard week at work, he comes to his Shabbat table, and on his Shabbat table he has all the delicacies. He has very expensive wine, he has caviar, he has jerky, he has tomahawk steaks, he has all the things that cost him a lot of money. He's looking at his table after a long work week and he says, Yishtabach Shemolad. Yishtabach Shemolad. Look at what my hands produce. Look at all this delicious food. It's because of me that I had all this food. I worked the whole week, therefore I deserve to eat like a king. The rabbis are telling us very, very quickly, wash your hands in tilat yadayim. Because when a person can think at a very long week, he looks at a Shabbat table and he can think, look at this. Kochi ve'otzem yadi asa li et ha'chayil hazeh. A person can think, he's so proud of himself. The rabbis tell him, fast, wash your hands, dispel any of this negative thought process that this food came to your table because of yourself. Therefore, the inyan of washing our hands, you're right. Even though srach tumah doesn't apply, but the logic of the Kohen, but the second reason, or the second logic, as the Torah calls it, terumat yedechem, raising up your hands. That's why the minhag is that after we wash our hands, what do? We pick up our hands. We say, oh yedechem kodesh. That's why if you look at the Rashba, in the very next source number 9, Shud the Rashba, he says, the reason why we say the word netilat yadayim, because if you think about it, we're not doing netilah means to raise. We're not raising our hands, we're washing our hands. It just says shitifat yadayim. Netilat yadayim. The answer is we have to wash we have to raise our hands after we wash them. The reason why we raise our hands in order to say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like Abraham Avinu raised his hands by Melech Sodom in order to say, Hashem, whatever he's offering me, I know it's not really from myself. I really know it's from you. Therefore, he raised his hands in order to say what? That I'm making a swear. So too, just like Rabbi also, Zakaf Etzer Etzbe'otav, he raised his hands and say, Hashem, I know that I made a lot of money in my life, but really nothing is really mine. So too, when we come to wash our hands on a Friday night seudah, thinking that kochi ve'otzem yadi, Hashem says, wash your hands fast. Wash your hands in order to dispel any notion that this seudah, this food really belongs to you. Really, it's not coming from you. It's coming from koach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, we wash and we raise our hand just like Abraham, just like Rabbi, to say, really, everything is really coming from you. And the truth is, maybe based on this, we could explain the whole process, this whole ceremony of waving the basket with the Kohen. We come along after we give the bikurim, after we give these first fruits to the Kohen, and we come along, we wave them. We ask, what is the significance of this waving process? And now but the Sifri called the raising this waving process terumat yedechem. It's the raising of the hands. What's Peshat? Peshat is just like we're saying, that a person can think, he came after very, very long 6 months of working on his farm, working on his field. And he finally brought the first fruits to the Kohen. And the Kohen says, is this coming from you? Who works so hard? Person, he might think to say, but at the end of the day, we're coming along, we're taking this basket and we're waving it. We're waving it with our hands up in order to say, Hashem, just like Abraham waved, and just like Rabbi waved, and just like we wave by netilat yadayim, so too we're waving at this moment. In order to say, Hashem, none of it comes from me. Really, everything comes from you. And the pasuk is so meduyak, because if you look at the pasuk and it says that who did he give this basket to? Benatan hatene to who? Belakah hakohen hatene. That the Kohen took the basket. Why specifically the Kohen? Because if you look in the pasuk in source number 10, the pasuk tells us that the Kohanim, they had no nachala, they had no peace, they had no territory in the land of Israel. Everything that Hashem gave, He gave away, not to the Kohanim. If you look at the pasuk, it says pasuk, Be'etahu, הבדיל השם את שבט הלוי, לשאת את ארון ברית השם, לעמוד לפני השם, לשרתו ולברך בשמו, עד היום הזה. על כן, לא היה חלק ונחלה עם אחיו. The Leviim, the Kohanim, they had no chilek, they had no territory in the land of Israel. Hashem hu nachalato, kasher debir Hashem lokecha lo. So it could be the reason, maybe the simple peshat of the reason why the Kohanim had no chilek is because Hashem wanted the Kohanim to be fully for himself. Imagine if you had a Kohen that had to deal with real estate. He had phone calls to make, he had signs to put up. How could he work in the Beit HaMikdash at the same time? Therefore Hashem said, I'm taking away the nachala of the Kohanim so he can be dedicated solely to the purpose of avodat Hashem. But maybe we can explain deeper. The reason why Hashem did not give the Kohanim territory is in order for the Kohen not to fall prey to the Yetzer Hara called Kochi. If the Kohen had a land, maybe he could start to think, yes, my land, Kochi ve'otzem yadi. Therefore Hashem on purpose, he took away this territory from the Kohanim to tell them, listen, you have no reason to think Kochi ve'otzem yadi. And the pasuk is meduyak, because the pasuk comes along and it says the Kohen took, look at the pasuk one more time, it says, V'lakach ha-Kohen ha-teneh, from where? Miyadecha, from his hand, in order to tell us that don't think that this is ma'aseh yadecha. Don't think that what you're giving me right now comes from your hand. Halakach hakohen hatene mi yadecha. He took it from his hand to dispel the notion that this is not coming from your hand. It's really coming from the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the incredible feat. And that's why, by the way, and that's why Dafka the Kohen allows us to wave. It's in combination with us giving the Trumah, giving these Bikurim to the Kohen, and the Kohen coming along and taking it and waving it. There's no better combination of who could bring a remez, bring an example of that these things that what we live on, all the parnasah that we have today does not come from us, and the combination of us and the Kohen waving it says the rabbis that we're trying to show Hashem that nothing belongs to us, really the whole thing belongs to you. And maybe that's why that when the Kohanim come in and they bless the people, Birkat Kohanim. What is it called? What is Birkat Kohanim called? It's called Nisiyut Kapayim. It's Nisiyut Kapayim. They come along and they raise their hands. The same notion of it. They're raising their hands in order to say that Hashem, nothing belongs to us. And that's why if you look in the Midrash comes along and says in the Pasuk, Vayeberechecha Hashem Yishmerecha. The first bracha that the Kohanim give us, Yeberechecha Hashem Yishmerecha. Says the Midrash, if you look at source number 11, Yeberechecha Hashem Be'osher. Hashem should bless us with wealth. Yeberechecha Hashem Be'osher. V'Yishmerecha, he should protect us from who? From the listim. It happens that once a person is wealthy, he needs a bodyguard. But says the Midrash, don't think that this listim in the Pasuk is in reference to physical robbers. Says the Midrash, לפי המבואר, הכוונה בזה, כי אחרי שנתברכו יישא בנכסים. After the Jewish people, they have bracha in their stuff, in their money, in their assets. הם צריכים ברכה מיוחדת וישמרך. We need a special bracha like a security guard in order to protect us. מן הליסטים השודדים. However, says the Midrash, שהם היצר הרע והתחבורות מרעב המפילים את האדם ברשות האמינות של כוחי ועוצם ידי. After a person gets blessed, he could think כוחי ועוצם ידי. That's why the Kohanim, when they come along and they bless us, v'yishmerecha, it's not physical bodyguard. It's coming on to tell me it's a spiritual bodyguard. When a person has so much nechasim, he has so much inherent wealth, he could think that this is my things. I made this work. It was my idea. It was my genius. It was my meetings. It was my everything. Therefore, Hashem says, v'yishmerecha, you should be protected. Protected from what? Protected from this yetzer hara of kochi ve'otzim. It should not affect you. You should not think at the end of the day this is yours. You should rather have to give all the credit away to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the question is, Rabotai, and that's the lesson, by the way. The lesson from Bikurim is it's a two-tone remez. Remez number one, it's gratitude. A person should not think that he could just get along in life without saying thank you. Thank you is one of the most important midot the person can have is gratitude. And the first person we should have gratitude for is the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right away, Hashem, you gave me something this. As the remez, I'm sticking that dollar on the cashier. I'm saying, Hashem, thank you for giving me something so incredible. But the second, more deep reason is we're trying to come along with saying, Hashem, yes, even though I'm having a lot of bracha in my life, at the end of the day, this bracha is not really mine. Everything really belongs to you. I thought to bring this class for mainly one reason, is because in 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're going to usher in Rosh Hashanah and Shavuot Tova. And Rosh Hashanah is a time where people pray for a lot of things, but I could assume a lot of people pray mostly for Parnasah. And what I've noticed is that sometimes we don't know exactly the proper way to ask for Parnasah. What do I mean? Most people, if you're going to hear them praying, they're going to say, Hashem, please give me more parnasah, please give me more livelihood, please give me more money. The truth is, on Rosh Hashanah, that is an incorrect way to ask for money when you really need it. And I'm going to tell you why. If you look in the Torah, when it comes to blowing the shofar, the Torah says that how do you blow the shofar? In Lashon of the Torah, it says that the shofar is blown what's called Yom Teruah. It's a day of Teruah, whatever that means. But the Torah doesn't tell me how to blow a teruah. It doesn't say anywhere the sounds I have to make. Sometimes on Wikipedia or Google Translate, when you want to translate a word into different language, and then it gives you the word, but you have no idea how to pronounce it. So if there's a little icon of a speaker, just press the speaker, and Google Translate will say the word for you. The problem is, in the Torah, there's no little speaker but the word Yom Teruah. So I cannot press it to tell me what a teruah is. So what do? If you look in the source number 12, it says Bamidbar, U'b'chodesh hashvi'i, in the 7th month, which is Tishrei, Be'echad chodesh, on the first day of the month, Mikra Kodesh Yelachem, it's considered holy. Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu, Yom Teruah Yelachem. There's no speaker. What is Yom Teruah? So look at the Targum Onkelos. He comes along and he tells me, I'll tell you what a Yom Teruah is, the very last line. He calls it Yom Yebaba Yelachon. It's considered a Yom Yebaba. So, Hazaku Baruch. So you told me Yom Teruah, I don't know what that means. Now you told me Yom Yebaba, I also don't know what that means. So you switch one word with another word, I have no idea what it means. So what is Yom Yebaba? What is Yom Teruah? So the rabbis in the Gemara, they're looking for a source. Where do we see elsewhere in the Torah that the word Yebaba is used? So the rabbi said, we found it. We found it in a famous story about a general, an evil evil king. His name was Sisera. And Sisera, he was a general in the army that instigated a lot of wars between himself and the Jewish people. And one day, he used to take a lot of captives. And one day, he took captive a woman by the name of Yael. And Yael, she was smart. She got him drunk. And after he got drunk, she fell asleep. And she took the stake, the stick that was holding, the spike, that was holding in the tent. She took the spike and she jammed it in to his right temple and she killed him. And afterwards, I guess when his army came back to the town where he was from, his mother, Sisera, Sisera as they call her, she was waiting for her son to come back, and she saw that he wasn't coming back, and when she realized that he's not coming back anymore because the truth is he's dead, she began to cry, she began to wail. And the Torah says, this comes from Shoftim, this is in source number 13, Be'at hachalon nishkefa b'teyabev Sisera, that she was watching from the window and she realized that her son is not coming back, b'teyabev Sisera, that she began to wail, she began to cry, Be'ad ha'enshba why is my son coming late? Why is his chariot not coming? And the rabbis want to learn from this story in Tanakh. The word Yebaba, to blow the teruah, is learnt from the mother of Sisera. The way that she cried is the way we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. From Rasha's mother, exactly. So sometimes she cried like therefore we blow shofar like that. Or sometimes she cries a little more staccato sounds, and therefore we copy the way that she cried. So do we blow the shofar the way Sisera cried? And the rabbis want to know, like Chaim's question, we learn the source of a mitzvah deoraita, of blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. The source that we learn how to blow it is from the mother of a Rasha. You couldn't find a better source to tell me how to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. What is the connection between Sisera and the blowing of the shofar, that these two are learned out one from the other? On a simple pashat, on a simple level, it could mean rationalization. That a person, when it comes to the way he serves Hashem, he's always rationalizing. You're right, the reason why I didn't go to shul was because I was up all night with my kid and therefore I didn't go to shul. Or the reason why I didn't do this mitzvah is because of this. The reason unfortunately, these rationalizations, even though when they don't actually happen, we use them as rationalizations. And therefore, Sisera is the same thing. When she didn't realize that her son was coming home from war, she began to rationalize. Maybe the reason why he's late is because he's taking captives, or maybe the reason why he's late is because he was taking all the spoils of war. Maybe the reason why he's late is because of this, because of that. She comes giving more reasons, more rationalizations of why she thinks her son is late. Finally, when she realized, when she was out of excuses to make for her son, and she realized the reason why he's not coming home is because he's dead, she stopped making excuses at this time. She said, you know what? Now I have to cry. Really, the truth is he's not coming home. And that's the realization that we make on Rosh Hashanah. When we blow the shofar, Hashem reminds us, enough with the realizations, enough with the rationalizations, enough with the excuses. We have to stop making excuses on Rosh Hashanah. We have to stop making all these reasoning, how we answer up our own avodat Hashem in order to make it sound as if we're tzaddikim. Hashem says enough. Just like Sisera stopped giving excuses for her son, so too on Rosh Hashanah, when we hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, we say, it's time for me to stop giving excuses with my avodat Hashem. That's one pshat of why we learn shofar from Sisera. But there's a deeper explanation. The explanation is as follows. If you were to come to a stockbroker and you ask him to buy you 10,000 shares in Apple, the first thing he's going to tell you is, listen, even though Apple has been very successful until this point, there's no guarantee that tomorrow the stock won't go down. There's no guarantee. Stocks, it could be, it's a win or lose. You're gambling when it comes to these things. It's not a guarantee. There's nothing in stocks that ever stays status quo. Nothing in stocks that stays status quo. And therefore, the lesson of shofar is that nothing stays status quo. We come along on Rosh Hashanah and we say, Hashem, I want you to give me more panasa. I want you to give me more cars. I want you to give me more watches. I want you to give me more stuff. Hashem says, you're asking me the wrong way. On Rosh Hashanah, nothing stays status quo. Just because you made $100,000 last year, you're coming along, Hashem, that same 100,000, I want it, plus another 20. Hashem says you don't ask for panasah that way. It doesn't work that way on Rosh Hashanah. Nothing on Rosh Hashanah is status quo. Just because you made $100,000 last year doesn't mean you're going to make $100,000 this year. When we come on Rosh Hashanah, we're coming to Hashem and we're starting from zero. The bank account on Rosh Hashanah is zero. Therefore, when we come to Hashem, we're asking for more panasah on Rosh Hashanah. We're not asking for more. We're asking for any biduk, exactly. And that's the lesson we will learn out from Sisra. When she came along and she said she assumed that her son is going to return from war just like he did the past 100 times. He said, listen, just like he came back last week from war, just like he came back last month from war, just like he came back last year from war, there's no reason why he should be coming back, not coming back tonight as well. And she kept on saying that. She kept on saying that he's going to come back. There's no reason why he shouldn't come back. If you were to come to Sisra the morning of that war, before Yael thrusted that spike into his head, and you would ask him, are you going to lose this war? He would have told you, lose this war. I don't lose wars. I don't lose wars, says Sisra. There was no reason for him to believe that this war was going to be any different than the previous one. And therefore, the lesson with Sisra and Sisra himself is nothing stays status quo. Nothing is the same. There's so many people that we know that overnight, they're millionaires, and all of a sudden, the night before, something happened, they lost all their money. When it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he can take away, just like he can give it in a moment, he take it away in a moment. And therefore, that's the reason why we learn shofar from the mother of a Rasha, because the two lessons are very congruent, they're very the same. Just like by Sisra, nothing stays status quo, so to on Rosh Hashanah, nothing stays status quo. We have to come along at Rosh Hashanah, we have to beg Hashem, not like last year, but from new, give me again. And therefore, the lesson behind both Parshat Tavo and the Rosh Hashanah is that yes, when we ask for Hashem things on Rosh Hashanah, it's not to give us like we had. It's to give us anything to start from the beginning. And now that when He eventually does give us, we have to say, Hashem, thank you for everything. And nothing is taken for granted. We say, Hashem, we lift up our hands. Both Abraham lifted up, both Rabbi lifted up. We lift up in Netilat Yadayim, and the Jew giving his bikurim with the Kohen, he also lifted up his hands to the Hashem. Everything ultimately comes from you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Grab my phone.